Well, good morning. We can't hear you. Good morning. One more time.
Good.
That's a great South Carolina welcome. Please take your seats if you can. Welcome to one of the most amazing experiences in all of your lives. A chance to hear from a Texas boy. South Carolina. Now, this is an important week in our country's history. We have a president who's going to give a speech about creating jobs. Now, he's lost 2.5 million jobs since he's been president, but he's going to give a speech about creating jobs. But we have with us today a true job creator. Since the governor took the office of governor in Texas, he's created more than 1.2 million jobs. And since 2009, he has created half of all the jobs in America in one state. We have a man who understands public service because he's been the governor, but more importantly, because he has served in the Air Force, he understands our national interest. I know two things for sure. The less I speak, the more he speaks, and the happier y'all are. So y'all are my bosses, so I'm going to shut up and give the mic to one of our candidates and perhaps the next president of the United States.
Jim, thank you very much. I'm going to have a seat just a second. And thank you for doing this. More importantly, thank you for bringing your mama. Scott, thank you for being here. Myra, thank you for coming along. I want to say this one thing before I get started, because I want to share with you all just a little bit about who I am, where I came from, and kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But one thing I want to say is I'm so proud to be the governor of a state that truly understands the importance of job creation. I mean, we got to get America back working again. And what government's role is to create an environment. I didn't create those jobs. Americans created those jobs. Texans created those jobs because we allowed them to have an environment where they weren't overtaxed, overregulated, overlitigated. And then we got out of the way and let the private sector do what the private sector does best. And I learned that in a little place called Paint Creek, Texas. If you got a Texas road map, it'll be on there. If you don't, it won't be. One of the things I did as the governor of Texas, I called the Department of Transportation. I said, I want you to put Paint Creek, Texas on the road map. It's about 200 miles west of Dallas-Fort Worth and 60 miles north of Abilene. My father refers to it as the Big Empty. and we're fifth generation out there, tenant farmers. I grew up on a dryland cotton farm. I grew up in a house that didn't have indoor plumbing. I know I'm an old guy, but that's just the way it was out there in those days. And my mom and dad were great and good and wonderful, and we weren't rich, Miss Scott, I'll promise you that, in material things, but we were rich in faith and family, and that's my foundation. And I understand hard work and getting up every day. And my dad early on had a couple of jobs and settled into farming out there. And Paint Creek was a wonderful little place. It was a school, about 110 kids or so, grades 1 through 12, and on a farm to market road. And across that farm to market road, there was a Baptist church and a Methodist church. Your choice. and my life rotated around school, church, and Boy Scouts. That was my life, and it was a good one. So, and then I went off to school to be a veterinarian to the beloved Texas A&M, on their way to the SEC, I might add. Get ready. And I tell my friends, organic chemistry made a pilot out of me. So I had a little shift in my college life over to the Vietnam War was still going on, and so I volunteered to serve in the United States Air Force and finished up school and headed to Big Spring, Texas for my pilot training, and I spent the next about 4.5 years flying around the world, and TAC airlifter, flew all over the European, South America, Middle Eastern part of the world. Lived in Saudi Arabia in 1975 and was seeing that country start to make its transition from a very tribal Bedouin Indian lifestyle to a country with asphalt roads, and watching these Saudis learn to drive was an interesting experience. So, but during that period of time, and this is where I want to kind of wrap it up and pitch this back to you, is I went through a maturing process, and you know, one of the great things about my life, I've been growing almost every day, but I went through a maturing process. I never left the United States, and I got out of Texas very few times as a boy growing up. And, in 1964, went to Valley Forge, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City for the World's Fair, National Scout Jamboree. But other than that, I really didn't get exposed to much, and particularly about the world. But as a young man and flying into various and sundry countries, and I started making the connection between how people lived and the type of government that they had. You know, we went into monarchies and theocracies and other types of governments, dictatorships, and I made that very powerful reflection to me about what a great country we live in and the freedoms that we have, and how precious they are, and that people would give their lives in a lot of cases to be able to have the freedoms that we have. And over the course of the last century, we've seen those freedoms chipped away time and time again. Those of you that have read my book, Fed Up, I talk about the loss of those freedoms, and you know, starting with that income tax that Tim's gonna fix. Working on it. And anyway, he's got a great piece of legislation that I think does get us to where we need to go as a country, where everyone can be participating in this process of this great country. But anyway, that had a powerful effect on me, and I came back home, went back to the farm, and then in the mid-'80s. I love public service. My father was a county commissioner. I've been trained and taught all of my life that public service is an honorable thing, whether it's wearing the uniform of our country, or whether it's serving like Tim does in Congress, or whether it's my great privilege to be the governor of a state. And so I truly believe that good men and women, it's one of the reasons I share with young people to find that place you're passionate about. You may join the Peace Corps, or you may join the Marine Corps, but find that way to give back to this country. It's what makes America unique. So with that, let me just say I've lived the American dream, from leaving a small farm out in Paint Creek, Texas, to be the governor of a great state that has created all of these jobs that Tim shared with you. And has been a real catalyst, and one of the things I've enjoyed is challenging other governors to lower their taxes, to have a regulatory climate that's fair and predictable. We passed the most sweeping tort reform in the nation in 2003, and then this last year we passed loser pay. I think we have, I've got a record that I'm really proud of, whether it was serving my country in the Air Force, whether it was coming back and being a small businessman for those 13 years, or then going back into public service in a different role, but again, making a difference. And the track record that we have created in Texas, I'll put up against anybody running for the President of the United States, but particularly the current resident of the White House.